So I'm Camille Krewcun. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the DEFROST team at Inria. I'm working in use case 1 in the SimCardioTest project, so that is on pacemaker leads and catheters, and it's therefore related to heart rhythm management. My role in the project is twofold. The first and main part of what I'm doing is to develop mechanical behavior models for the pacemaker lead. So they are computational numerical models. And the idea with these models is to be able to represent in the simulation the way the lead will deform when subjected to constraints. So to illustrate that, if you take, let's say, a metallic spring, and if you pull on it, it will pull back to go to its original rest shape. And the force with which it will pull back describes how it reacts to deformation. And so the thing is that it is quite simple to describe the way the spring reacts, but a lead is a much more complex structure with inner substructure that change the way it behaves. And in addition to that, when they are implanted in the patient, leads are also implanted with insertion devices, for instance, a metallic wire, which is put inside the lead for navigation. And this changes also the behavior of the lead. So the idea is to come up with a model that accurately represents all of that while being as close as possible to reality. And the second part of what I'm doing is to compare the simulation to experimental data in order to assess the accuracy of the model. Because we want, with the simulation, to evaluate the risk of adverse clinical events during and after lead implantation. So during lead implantation, this can be damage on the lead, which can cause rupture, or it can also be damage on the anatomy, so in the vessels or in the heart, due to the action of the lead. And so with the simulation, we are looking to evaluate the risk of such events to happen. And to be precise, to be able to evaluate that, we need a model which is precise enough to reproduce what we can expect to happen in real life, in real conditions. And these represent the anatomy of an actual patient. The goal of the simulation is not to be used individually for each patient, which will be implanted the lead. It's rather to simulate navigation in a virtual cohort of patients. We have a basic simulation which is working. So in this simulation, we are able to interactively navigate pacemaker lead inside pseudo anatomy, which is not a realistic anatomy at the moment. It's only there to mimic a realistic anatomy and to test our model. And so with this, we are able to navigate the lead inside the anatomy, and we are able to measure both the force applied by the lead on the anatomy and the stress level inside the lead while it is deformed during the navigation and afterwards when it's implanted and when it undergoes the heart motion. We are working at the moment on 3 main improvements of the simulation. The first one is the refinement of the lead model. So this is the first axis. The second one is to use, to acquire realistic anatomical data. So we are working with physicians to get realistic patient data. And the third axis we're working on, which is maybe the most important, is the validation of the model. So comparison of the simulated results with actual experimental results. What we want to do with the simulation is to get the same level of information. So to predict if the lead is efficient or not. But instead of using animal experiments and clinical trials, running in silico trials with a virtual model to cut cost, time, and obviously animal experiments and clinical trials on actual persons. Actually, for me, this is the main challenge that we are facing developing this in silico trials, these models, is to bring the same level of confidence that we have today with the standard methods, with clinical trials. And I think things are progressing fast. And with projects such as SimCardioTest, I think it can be much a matter of years than a matter of decades or before these models are actually used in practice. If not to replace, at least to support clinical trials and standard procedures today.